Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our read through of Mark. We have made it to chapter 10, which is actually not that far from the end of Mark's Gospel. In fact, in just I think it's the next chapter. In just the next chapter, we begin kind of the end story in Mark's Gospel. So that's exciting. But first, we have to contend with Mark. Oh gosh. Good morning. I am tired and I can't get my words right. First, we have to contend with Mark chapter 10, which has quite a few tricky passages in it. Borodar, Wayne. Well done for being on your own name, not the sanctuary. It's good. Good morning, Nick. You are also on your own name. We are all, well, you're doing better than me. So far, I've got confused between Mark, Luke and Matthew. But we're in Mark, in case anyone had forgotten. And we're going for chapter 10. I am actually going to read the chunk today because it can be an emotive passage, and I want to make sure that I read the words that are written here before I try and put my own words on the screen. So hopefully you'll bear with me. I'm quite a fast reader, so we should get through it fast. But it is chapter 10, verses 1 to 12. Jesus then left the place and went into the region of Judea and across the Jordan. Again, crowds of people came to him, and as was his custom, he taught them. Some Pharisees came and tested him by asking, "Is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife?" "What did Moses command you?" he replied. They said, "Moses permitted a man to write a certificate of divorce and send her away." "It was because your hearts were hard that Moses wrote you this law," Jesus replied. "But at the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate." When they were in the house again, the disciples asked Jesus about this. He answered, "Anyone who divorces his wife and marries another woman commits adultery against her. And if she divorces her husband and marries another man, she commits adultery." So you might see why... good morning to Emma. You might see why I wanted to read that passage. I wanted to hear exactly what Jesus said on this matter, because it is one of those emotive and slightly contentious discussions within the church. But so what does Jesus say? So firstly, Jesus is laying out an ideal here, isn't he? He is laying out an ideal for faithful love that continues until death do us part. That is the absolute ideal. That is God's dream, God's vision, God's plan for marriage is forever and ever faithful, good love. The problem is that we are humans and we make mistakes and we fail, sometimes through no fault of our own and sometimes entirely through our own fault. We fail, we mess up. But if you learned anything about Jesus so far in Mark's Gospel, if you know anything about Jesus already, you know that he loves the failures. He loves the ones that completely mess it up and then come back to him. And there is redemption even within this sort of failure. There is still hope and there is still joy to come. Life presents us with a reality that an ideal doesn't always match up to. Our sin brings in a new reality that isn't always meeting the ideal that God had planned for us. But one of the things Jesus focuses on is the hearts. He says to the Pharisees, where does he say? "It was because your hearts were hard that Moses wrote this law." So my personal interpretation is that Moses is saying, you can't divorce someone just because your heart is hard, just because you don't feel it anymore. That happens all the time, doesn't it? Marriage, I'm married. Marriage is a roller coaster. There are days where you absolutely love your spouse and you think they are the best thing on the entire world. And there are days where you think, ugh, like you just farted and we've got guests over and you didn't put the dishes in the dishwasher and right now I just don't find you all that attractive and the love I feel is not the same. But that's where we have to love with the commitment. We have to love regardless of the human feelings, of the frailty of our human hearts, and we have to love regardless. And that's the kind of love that God is calling us to in marriage, is to love faithfully and enduringly and with commitment, to believe in those promises that we made when we got married, that nobody could take it apart. but equally to realise the reality of sin and the reality of the world. I feel like I'm rambling, but I want to be clear that God has an ideal, Jesus has an ideal for marriage, and that is faithful, whole life commitment. But sin and this world and our human, fragile, frail, sinful hearts sometimes has other plans and sometimes mess up. And that isn't God's ideal. But God offers redemption and love and salvation and joy and hope and all of those good things to everyone who fails, even if your marriage has failed. I think that's the point I'm going for from this passage. I hope that makes sense. I hope it brings you hope. Do join in with commenting though if you've got another idea, or if this has encouraged you. We'd love to hear that.